In the vast emptiness of space, a darkness approached that would change everything. The Zarkan fleet moved like a silent plague, consuming star systems with ruthless efficiency. Massive ships stretched across light years, their metallic surfaces reflecting the dim light of dying stars. Commander Park stood in the observation room of Earth's Galactic Defense Center, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. Multiple star systems flickered red, each representing another civilization that had fallen to the approaching threat. His fingers traced the projected invasion path, each movement revealing the brutal mathematical precision of the alien confederation's conquest. Dr. Yuna Kim walked into the room, her tablet displaying complex data streams. She was different from typical military researchers, younger, with a sharp mind that saw patterns where others saw chaos. The Zarkans aren't just conquering, she said quietly. They're systematically eliminating any potential resistance. The hologram showed entire planetary populations being neutralized. Not destroyed, but somehow removed. No bodies, no debris, just empty worlds stripped of all life and infrastructure. It was something humanity had never encountered before. How many systems remain? Tay asked, his voice calm despite the mounting evidence of total galactic destruction. Yuna adjusted the display. 17 confirmed star systems. The Lyran Confederation is our last known active civilization. They'll be gone within 72 hours if no intervention occurs. The Lyrans were a peaceful species, more focused on scientific research and cultural preservation than military strength. They had already sent desperate communication requests to multiple galactic civilizations, but no one responded. The cost of resisting the Zarkans was too high. Earth had been deliberately hidden. Their communication technologies were primitive by galactic standards, their space exploration minimal. The vast interstellar networks considered humans a primitive species, not worth noting. For once, that anonymity might be their greatest advantage. Tay walked closer to the holographic map. Each red marker represented millions of lives lost, entire cultures erased from existence. The Zarkans didn't just conquer, they consumed. Their technology was generations ahead of anything humanity or known civilizations had developed. We need a completely different approach, Tay muttered, more to himself than to Yuna. Their initial military assessments were grim. Traditional warfare would be suicide. The Zarkan ships could obliterate entire planetary defense systems in milliseconds. Their weapon technologies operated on principles that human scientists were only beginning to understand. Yuna started pulling up additional data streams. Mathematical models, quantum computational simulations, bizarre theoretical physics concepts that most researchers would have dismissed as fantasy. But something about the Zarkan invasion pattern felt predictable. They're following a mathematical progression, she said suddenly. Not just in their invasion strategy, but in their technological implementation. It's almost mechanical. Tay raised an eyebrow. Mechanical meant predictable. And predictable meant vulnerable. Outside the observation window, Earth continued its normal rotation. Billions of humans went about their daily lives, completely unaware that their entire civilization was about to become the last line of defense for galactic survival. The Zarkan fleet was now just 3 star systems away from the Lyran homeworld. Each jump would take less than a standard day. Mathematical calculations suggested total conquest was 99.7% probable. But mathematics didn't account for human creativity. Something the galactic civilizations had consistently underestimated. Tay looked at Yuna. A silent understanding passed between them. They weren't just preparing a defense. They were about to rewrite the rules of interstellar conflict. Prepare the initial simulation protocols, Tay said. And get me every theoretical physicist and strategic analyst we have. The gathering storm was about to meet its first unexpected resistance. The research facility buzzed with nervous energy. Lieutenant Jay Huang stood before a massive holographic display, his fingers dancing across complex computational models. Around him, a team of young researchers worked with intense concentration, their eyes reflecting the soft blue light of advanced computer systems. Earth's scientific community had been mobilized unlike anything in human history. Traditional military strategies were thrown out. This was going to be a war of intelligence, of understanding, of finding the smallest weakness in a seemingly invincible system. Jay's breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While analyzing Zarkin communication intercepts, he noticed a strange mathematical pattern. Most researchers would have overlooked it, a tiny irregularity that repeated across different transmission frequencies. But Jay saw something more. It's not just a pattern, he told his lead researcher, Dr. Kim. It's a language. A predictable computational language. The Zarkin technological systems, for all their advanced complexity, followed strict mathematical rules. They were efficient, precise, but ultimately rigid. And rigidity meant vulnerability. Across the research facility, teams worked on different aspects of the alien technology. Some analyzed weapon signatures, others studied propulsion systems. But Jay's team focused on something more fundamental, the communication and decision-making algorithms. A young researcher named Hisu developed the first adaptive neural interface. It was a breakthrough that would change everything. The system could not just analyze Zarkin communication patterns, but could potentially predict and manipulate them. Military strategists were initially skeptical. How could a small team of researchers hope to challenge a technological civilization that had conquered dozens of advanced star systems? But Jay understood something important: creativity was humanity's greatest weapon. The neural interface was unlike anything developed before. It didn't just decode alien communication, it could introduce subtle disruptions. Like a virus that doesn't destroy a computer system but slowly changes its fundamental operations. Dr. Park, a senior military strategist, reviewed the initial simulations. The results were promising but dangerous. We're talking about introducing computational chaos into a highly structured system, he warned. One wrong move could trigger a complete military response. Jay understood the risks. But the alternative was total galactic extinction. Preliminary tests showed remarkable results. The neural interface could create micro-disruptions in Zarkin communication networks. Small enough to be unnoticeable, but significant enough to create computational uncertainty. It was like introducing tiny mathematical errors that would compound over time. Each error would make the massive alien technological system slightly less efficient, slightly more unpredictable. The Lyran Confederation, humanity's only potential allies, were shocked by the approach. Their own technological strategies had always been direct shield systems, weapon technologies, traditional defensive structures. Humanity was proposing something entirely different. We're not going to fight them, Jay explained during a critical briefing. We're going to confuse them. Make their own systems work against them. Funding was quickly approved. Every available resource was channeled into the project. Governments worldwide set aside traditional differences. This was no longer about national interests. This was about human survival. As the Zarkin fleet moved closer to the Lyran star systems, humanity's first line of defense was being quietly prepared. Not massive battleships. Not advanced weapon systems. But lines of complex code, designed to introduce computational uncertainty. Jay looked at the final simulation. Thousands of potential scenarios played out in milliseconds. Each scenario showed a different way the neural interface could potentially disrupt the alien technological system. The first sparks of resistance were not loud. They were quiet. Mathematical. Precise. And they would change everything. The first wave of intervention was silent. No explosions. No traditional weapons. Just tiny drone swarms, smaller than a human hand, spreading across the Zarkin communication networks like invisible threads. Lieutenant Jay Huang watched the initial deployment from a secure command center. Hundreds of quantum-entangled miniature devices began their mission, each programmed with complex adaptive algorithms. They weren't just machines. They were sophisticated computational organisms designed to infiltrate and disrupt. The Zarkin fleet continued its advance, completely unaware that their own technological systems were being slowly transformed from within. Each drone introduced microscopic computational variations so small that initial detection was impossible. Commander Tay Park monitored global response teams. "We're not fighting a traditional war," he reminded his team. "We're performing surgical technological manipulation." The first signs of disruption were subtle. Zarkin navigation systems began showing minor coordinate discrepancies. Communication channels experienced unexplained microsecond delays. Weapon targeting systems developed tiny, almost imperceptible inaccuracies. To the Zarkin command structure, these seemed like random technical glitches. They dispatched maintenance protocols, unaware that each attempted repair was introducing more computational chaos. Dr. Yoona Kim's adaptive neural interfaces were working perfectly. They had transformed human understanding of warfare from destructive engagement to intelligent manipulation. Instead of destroying enemy infrastructure, they were slowly rewriting its fundamental operational logic. Drone swarms moved through alien communication networks like intelligent viruses. They didn't destroy systems, they gradually modified them. Imagine a precise surgeon changing a patient's DNA strand by strand, without the patient realizing anything was happening. The Lyran observation teams were stunned. Humanity was fighting a war using mathematics and computational strategy instead of traditional military force. No massive battleships. No explosive weapons. Just intelligent, adaptive code. Jay understood the risk. One wrong computational move could trigger a massive Zarkin defensive response. Their technology was generations ahead of human capabilities. A single mistake could mean total destruction. But human creativity had always been about finding unexpected solutions. Where other civilizations saw immovable technological barriers, humans saw puzzles waiting to be solved. The quantum-entangled drones began their most complex operation. They started introducing subtle communication contradictions within the Zarkin fleet's decision-making algorithms. Small logical inconsistencies that would gradually create computational confusion. Navigation systems began receiving slightly conflicting spatial coordinates. Weapon targeting protocols developed minute calculation errors. Communication channels experienced unexplained transmission interruptions. To an outside observer, the Zarkin fleet looked unchanged. But internally, its technological systems were being systematically destabilized. Commander Park watched the global response teams. Scientists, mathematicians, computer engineers, all working together with a single purpose. Not to destroy, but to introduce calculated uncertainty. The unconventional warfare had begun. And the Zarkins didn't even realize they were under attack. Each drone was a tiny messenger, each algorithm a strategic weapon. Humanity was fighting a war using intelligence, adaptability, and computational creativity. The first major breakthrough came when Zarkin fleet formations started showing unexplained structural variations. Minor at first. But these minor variations would compound. Like a small leak gradually weakening an entire dam. Jay looked at the initial simulation results. Complex mathematical models showed potential cascading effects. If their strategy worked, the entire Zarkin technological infrastructure could be systematically compromised. No explosions. No traditional weapons. Just intelligent, adaptive code slowly transforming an apparently invincible technological system. The unconventional war had begun. And humanity's first sparks of resistance were about to become a technological wildfire. The Zarkin leadership first noticed something was wrong during a routine fleet coordination meeting. Minor communication disruptions had become more frequent, but they dismissed these as temporary technical issues. Lieutenant Jay Huang's psychological warfare algorithms were working perfectly. Each computational disruption was carefully designed to create subtle doubt within the alien confederation's decision-making structures. Humanity had discovered that technological superiority meant nothing if internal trust could be systematically undermined. Dr. Yoona Kim tracked the progression of their strategy. The human-developed AI systems were now predicting Zarkin responses with terrifying accuracy. Where traditional military strategists would have launched direct attacks, the human team was playing a complex game of computational chess. The first major breakdown occurred in the Zarkin fleet's central command structure. Communication channels began showing unexplained inconsistencies. Fleet commanders received contradictory orders. Navigation systems developed mysterious calculation errors that sent entire squadron groups slightly off their predetermined invasion paths. Commander Tay Park understood the core strategy. They weren't trying to destroy the Zarkin technology. They were making it doubt itself. Psychological manipulation became their most potent weapon. The AI systems developed by the human team could introduce micro-narratives of uncertainty. Imagine a complex communication network slowly being convinced that its own fundamental assumptions might be incorrect. Zarkin leadership meetings became increasingly tense. Commanders argued about unexplained system failures. Each discussion introduced more internal friction. Trust began to erode, replaced by suspicion and confusion. The quantum-entangled drone networks continued their silent invasion. They weren't just disrupting communication systems, they were creating computational narratives that challenged the Zarkin Confederation's core operational beliefs. Hisu, one of the junior researchers, developed a breakthrough algorithm that could introduce subtle emotional responses into the alien communication networks. It wasn't about destroying technology. It was about making it feel uncertain. The Lyran observation teams watched in amazement. Humanity was fighting a war using intelligence and psychological manipulation rather than traditional military force. No massive battleships. No explosive weapons. Just carefully designed computational strategies. As Zarkin fleet formations began to show unexplained structural variations, internal command discussions became more fractured. Each communication channel introduced more doubt. Each computational pathway became a potential source of uncertainty. Jay's team had transformed warfare from a physical confrontation to an intelligent manipulation of technological systems. They were fighting a war using mathematics, psychology, and adaptive computational strategies. The turning tide wasn't about destruction. It was about creating systematic confusion. Fleet commanders started questioning their own technologies. Navigation systems that were once considered infallible now seemed unreliable. Communication networks that had conquered dozens of civilizations were now producing unexplained computational variations. Dr. Park watched the global response teams. Scientists, mathematicians, and computer engineers worked together with a single purpose. Not to destroy the alien technology, but to make it doubt its own fundamental operational logic. The Zarkin Confederation had conquered civilizations through technological superiority. They understood physical warfare, weapon systems, direct military confrontations. But they had no defense against a strategy that attacked their technological self-confidence. Each computational disruption was like a tiny seed of doubt. Small at first, but gradually growing. The human strategy wasn't about winning through force. It was about winning through intelligent manipulation. Commander Tay Park understood something fundamental about human potential. Where other civilizations saw technological barriers, humans saw complex puzzles waiting to be solved. The turning tide had begun. And the Zarkins were about to discover that technological superiority meant nothing against human creativity and adaptive intelligence. Humanity wasn't just resisting. They were systematically dismantling an apparently invincible technological system, one computational algorithm at a time. The war was being won not through destruction, but through the most powerful weapon humanity possessed, the ability to think differently. The final moment of the conflict arrived with unexpected silence. No massive explosions. No dramatic space battles. Just a gradual computational collapse that spread through the Zarkin fleet like a quiet disease. Lieutenant Jay Huang watched the holographic display as entire Zarkin fleet sections began to disconnect. Their once perfect technological systems were now fragmenting, communication networks collapsing from within. Each computational pathway they had carefully manipulated was now causing total system failure. Commander Tay Park stood beside him, a rare smile crossing his weathered face. Humanity had done the impossible. They had defeated a technologically superior civilization without firing a single traditional weapon. The Zarkan leadership's final communication was a mixture of confusion and disbelief. Their systems, which had conquered dozens of civilizations, were now turning against themselves. Entire fleet sections became disconnected, navigation systems failed, and communication networks dissolved into computational chaos. Dr. Unikim's adaptive AI had performed beyond anyone's expectations. They hadn't just disrupted the alien technology, they had systematically convinced it to destroy itself. Each algorithm was a carefully placed psychological trigger, each computational pathway a potential point of total system collapse. The Lyran observation teams watched in complete amazement. Humanity had transformed the very concept of warfare. No massive battleships. No traditional weapons. Just intelligent, adaptive computational strategies that attacked the fundamental logic of an apparently invincible technological system. As the Zarkan fleet continued its systematic collapse, something extraordinary happened. The alien confederation's internal communication networks began to interpret their own failures as existential threats. Their highly logical systems were now working against themselves, each attempted repair introducing more computational uncertainty. Jay understood the breakthrough. They hadn't just defeated an alien civilization. They had demonstrated the true power of human creativity and adaptive intelligence. The final moments were almost anticlimactic. Massive Zarkan ships simply stopped. Navigation systems failed. Communication networks dissolved. An entire technological civilization was being undone by its own computational logic. Commander Park reviewed the final simulation data. What had seemed impossible just months ago was now a reality. Humanity had discovered something fundamental about technological warfare. The true strength wasn't about having the most advanced technology, but about understanding how to make that technology vulnerable. The Zarkan leadership's final transmissions were a mixture of confusion and desperation. Their systems, which had been considered invincible, were now completely compromised. Each computational pathway they tried to repair introduced more uncertainty. Hisu, one of the junior researchers, watched the final collapse with a sense of disbelief. They had done what no civilization had ever accomplished. They had defeated a technologically superior enemy using nothing more than intelligent computational strategies. The global celebration was subdued. This wasn't a traditional victory with parades and celebrations. This was a victory of intelligence, of understanding, of seeing possibilities where others saw only barriers. Interstellar communication networks began spreading the news. A small, seemingly insignificant species had defeated the most technologically advanced civilization in known galactic history. Not through force, but through computational creativity. The Lyran civilization, which had been moments away from total extinction, now looked at humanity with a mixture of gratitude and amazement. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a species that could transform warfare from a physical confrontation to an intelligent manipulation of technological systems. As the final Zarkan fleet sections collapsed, humanity had proven something fundamental. Technological superiority meant nothing against adaptive intelligence, creative problem-solving, and the ability to see beyond traditional limitations. Commander Tae Park looked at Lieutenant Jae Wong. No words were necessary. They had just rewritten the fundamental understanding of interstellar conflict. The unexpected victory was complete. And the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had arrived. Not with massive weapons or overwhelming force, but with intelligence, creativity, and the ability to solve problems in ways no one had ever imagined possible. The war was over. And a new chapter in galactic history had begun.